And look at that. We are live just like that with today's 220-1202 Core 2A Plus study group. This is our pre-show where I am right now putting in my in-ear monitor so that I can actually hear myself, which I can. And it's time for me to check that everything is working as expected. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone. I guess I should put the Q&A link up on the screen. So if you would like to put your digital push pin into our digital map in a digital way using your digits. I'm not really sure where to go with this. You can do that. There's the link. Hey, Malk, how are you? Good to see you today. Hope things are going well in St. Vincent. We are doing just fine here in Florida. Things here are... actually, we're in that summer mode already in Florida where I can work through. I'm very accustomed to working throughout the entire day. I start very early. I finish very late. And especially right now, because there's obviously big projects going on. But now it's summertime in Central Florida. And for those of you familiar with summertime in Central Florida, it rains every day in the evening after a certain time of the day. It's nice and hot. And then the skies open up. It's building. The clouds get bigger and bigger, and then it just lets go, and everything in Orlando area is soaked in the afternoons. So I'm used to working all day, and then at 6 o'clock, I have to shut everything down and unplug, which is sort of the standard mode in the summer for those of you not from Florida or these types of situations, where we are constantly having to unplug all of our electronics, because if you get hit by lightning, it will burn, fry, completely annihilate every single thing that is plugged into the wall. It'll come in through your Ethernet connection. It'll come in through a phone line. It'll come in through a coax cable. It'll come in through your power connection. It will hit a tree in your yard, hit the irrigation wires that are used to turn on and off your irrigation equipment, use that to hit the irrigation system, which may be plugged into your power, which then goes into your house. You see where I'm going? So this is why we unplug everything. So I'm very unproductive in the evenings. I do go wireless with my laptop, so we do have that, but it's sometimes a challenge. Sometimes difficult to get it going, but that's okay. We are making do. We knew this was coming. It's a normal Florida summer. That's sort of how it works. And if we aren't hit, I'm kind of surprised. If it's not raining in the evening, what's wrong? What have we done incorrectly that it is not storming on us? So that's the way it goes. That's sort of the background. For those of you wondering, a little inside baseball on what I do with my life, as if anyone really cares about that, but that is what we do. I pack it up in the evenings, and I'm on a laptop. We do things that are not quite detailed, multi display, edit, render, that kind of thing. So all of that gets unplugged. Hey, there's my 5-minute warning. I guess I should actually check things. Let's do that real quick. Make sure our recordings are going. Those look good. Down here, you can see, well, you really can't see, our Cylons are circling back and forth there. So they are recording everything we do. And then we've got cameras look good. The middle 4 windows there are our primary inputs, and those look good. Hey, there's me. Look at that. And then we've got our preview and our active video that you are seeing, which, by the way, is exactly what you see here. So those two things are always the same. And things look great with 3% as our cache is exactly what we like, and it looks perfectly normal. So you are receiving YouTube is receiving a very good signal from us. What type of stream you're getting from YouTube, that's a completely different question, one which I have no visibility nor control over. And then we're using about 6 megabits per second of upward bandwidth. We have at this facility 2 gigabit upload bandwidth. I'm just using 6 megabits. I'm using 6 of the 2000. So we're good. We are super good. So now it's just about waiting for that to hit 12 so I can show you all the new questions I wrote for you. I wrote one. Well, I thought I had to write one this morning. I sat down and looked at everything I had put together over the weekend and realized, oh, wait, I don't have a performance-based question. Then I went to my performance-based question info and found, oh, okay, I did write it. I just didn't put it into the presentation. So now it's in the presentation and we're good. That was a very long story for something that really wasn't all that interesting. But it's the pre-show, and I'm filling time. So that's how we're focusing on it. How is the labor market in Central Florida? Sandy asks. Central Florida is a very good place for IT. Generally speaking, in all of Florida, I would say Orlando and sort of the Central Florida market in general is very good for IT. You have a lot of different kinds of businesses in Central Florida. There's federal, there's contractors, there is private organizations. There is large corporations, there are entertainment companies. There's a lot of different things there. So that's kind of fun. So you got a lot happening there. Tampa is very similar. It's a little bit smaller than the Orlando area, but not much. Tampa is a different mix. A lot of financials there. Some big financial data centers are in Tampa. You've got a lot of call centers in Tampa. There's, of course, medical in Central Florida is huge. Government is huge. So there's lots there. I used to live in Miami for about 10 years. Mrs. Professor Messer was born in Miami and grew up there. And so Miami is great for IT. Miami's just chaos. It's just chaotic. It's a special animal. It's a unique place to live. But if you're in it and you're with it and you figure out the flow, it's a fantastic place, and a lot of IT there as well. You've got huge companies there, large data centers. You've got lots of government, lots of medical, just tons. And I did not learn much Spanish in Miami other than how to order food, which kind of tells you what's wrong with me. What? Be conversational? No, I just want arroz con pollo, please. Por favor. Mucho. And that's kind of the extent. I'm just an ignorant English-speaking person. I try to learn different pieces of it. For some reason, my brain is not wired so well. I always wonder if I had learned Spanish when I was younger, would it have worked? Would it have stuck? And I don't know that that's the case. I know that perhaps it would have, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just not sure I'm really prepped for it. I'm not really good at it. I'm happy just to get through the day in English, quite honestly. Okay. Yeah, the world of polyglots is fascinating to me. I love the YouTube videos where people can speak 6 different languages and have conversations. It's remarkable. Well, look at that. It's top of the hour, I think. We're approaching it. We got 15 seconds left. I think that means we could probably do a live stream. I think we can probably get this party going. We'll put this here. That looks good there. Do I have my circle up here? I don't. Let's put our circle up. Circle, circle, and 12 noon. That means I can hit my keynote here. We'll hit the play button. We got a green light. Oh, and it works. I love it when a plan comes together. Why don't we do a live stream, everybody? What do you think? I think that's a good idea, too. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2025 Professor Messer 220-1202 Core 2A Plus Study Group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and we will all together see just how much you know about the A+ exam and what is expected of you on the A+ exam. If you are here live, we'd love for you to join us online at the URL that you see right here. Pop open a new browser window and head over to professormesser.com/QA. professormesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to see all of the different questions, topics, the things that we are doing online. In fact, if you go there right now, you'll see our virtual pin cushion is up where we can see where everybody is connecting from around the world right now live on this stream. Thank you, by the way, so much for being here. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time. If you are watching this on the replay, you won't be able to go to that particular URL. There it is. If I put the right graphic up, you won't be able to go to that URL, but you can, of course, join in with us, follow along to find out the different things that we are doing here today. Just to see if you are on the right page and you are able to see that information, we have what we call our rewind question. This is a question from a previous study group, just to see if you're able to get in and answer the question online. Our number one rule, of course, as we are answering questions in this live stream, is please answer questions using that URL. Please do not put answers to the questions in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room. In fact, we will start with a question that is our rewind from, I think this was last month. And this rewind question asks, a system administrator is recovering a system from backups and has a total of 4 backup sets for the restoration. Which of the following backup types is most likely in use? Is it incremental, image, synthetic, cloud, or differential? Those are your 5 options. Mull those over. Again, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to go to that link right there, professormesser.com/QA, to submit your answer. And we will come back to this answer in just a moment. Thank you so much for being here. We do enjoy doing these live streams. We have a live stream scheduled once a month for each one of the courses that we have. So we do 4 live streams a month. One for A+ Core 1, A+ Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. You're here today and watching this one. That is the Core 2 study group. When we're not here on our live stream, we have lots of things going on social media. You can find us on professormesser.com/YouTube, /Twitter, or /X, and professormesser.com/Instagram. We also have daily A+ pop quiz questions. You might want to look at some of those. That might help you a little bit. And of course, there's a lot going on right now with the Core 2, the 220-1202 exam. We are finishing up the posting of videos on our YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed on professormesser.com/YouTube, you might have missed that. Make sure you head over there and subscribe to our channel so you can catch all of that information. Don't forget that somewhere in this first hour, I will give you some instructions on how you can earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to give you more details than that. You'll learn more as we get there later today. But this is something that if you are already have an A+ certification, a Network Plus, or a Security Plus, you can use these CEUs for renewal. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the A+, you've been keeping up with what's going on, you know that there are actually 4 A+ exams that you could potentially take right now. Obviously, you only need to take 2 to pass your exam. 2 of these that you could take are the 220-1101 and the 220-1102. If you look at the CompTIA website, they refer to this older version, it's still a current version, as version 14. It was released on April the 20th of 2022, and here's the kicker. It retires on September 25th of this year. So if you are planning to take the 1101 and 1102 exams to earn your A+ certification, you have just over 3 months left, which means if you're in the middle of it, maybe you've already gotten through one of these, you've got plenty of time to finish up, but you have to make sure you use your time wisely and get both of these done before that retirement date. If you do not get both of these done before that retirement date, you'll have to go to the next iteration of the exam that we'll talk about in just a moment. These 2 exams are 90 minutes each. The 1101 expects you to earn a 675 score to pass on a scale from 100 to 900. The 1102 is a little bit harder. You have to earn a 700 on that same scale. And the exam itself consists of both multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. We will have all of those types of questions on the live stream today. Now, let's say you're just starting your A+ studies. Let's say you haven't even taken an A+ exam yet. You probably do not want to take a series of exams that retires in 3 months. That's a little bit tight. Instead, you may want to go with the latest or newer version of the A+ certification, the 220-1201 and the 220-1202. Again, that is a version 15. You can see we incremented that by 1. This version was released in March, just 3 months ago, not even. So that version is relatively new, which means those 2 exams will be around until approximately September of 2028. So that makes it a little bit easier to keep track of it. You don't have to worry about a deadline if you're scheduling those 2 exams. I guess you do have to worry, but not so much. September 2028 is not much of a worry. You should be able to pass both of your exams by September of 2028 as we sit here in June of 2025. Your exam requirements, again, exactly the same as the previous version. They changed nothing with scores. They changed nothing with the format. They didn't even change the structure of the exam objectives. They are identical. There are minor differences between them. We can talk about those in the after show if you would like. That's something to keep in mind. We will talk more about these 2 exams as we go through the live stream today. Those 2 exams identical on the 1101 and 1102. The 1201 and 1202, I changed nothing on the slide. It's exactly the same. That's how close they are to each other, which from your perspective, that's a great advantage. So keep that in mind. If you are familiar with these exams and you need to move to the newer version, it will be a relatively easy move for you. We have this video available on replay immediately after we're done, so you can always go to the Professor Messer YouTube channel and watch this video. I also create a YouTube or a podcast, an audio-only podcast version of this. You can find that at professormesser.com/podcast, and you can add it to your favorite podcast listening program. If you're on a streaming audio service like Spotify, all you have to do is search for Professor Messer. Our podcast replays are already there. So another nice thing to have available. Also keep in mind that if you look at our YouTube video description, about a day after this live stream, you'll suddenly see, as if by magic, a series of timestamps that have been added with links. So you can jump to any part of this video at any time to find exactly what you're looking for. Those are there thanks to the hard work of my marketing manager, Lori. Hi, Lori. She is watching this video on the replay, probably at 2x speed, and putting in all of these timestamps for you. And you can go back years to find information with these timestamps. It's very useful in all of those previous videos as well. Thank you, Lori, for that. And if you find that's useful in the chat room, you might want to give Lori a wave and tell her thanks because she is watching that YouTube replay go by along with the chat. There's also a lot of us that will be over in the Discord server when we're done. If you'd like to study for your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus with thousands of other people, we have them on our Discord. There's some smart people there as well that have already been through this process. You might want to find out more at professormesser.com/Discord. It's a good place to have a study group, to ask questions about the content, or just to hang out with other people who happen to be doing a similar thing that you are. And we get some good info from time to time. You can find out more at professormesser.com/Discord. Don't forget that eventually you will need to take your exam. It's true. And although you can't see here, this says discounted CompTIA vouchers, U.S., Canada, and U.S. territories. That is because we provide discounted vouchers on the Professor Messer website. Sure, you could go over to the CompTIA website and pay full price, but why would you do that when you can come here at professormesser.com/vouchers and you don't even have to have a coupon code? You don't have to put anything in your browser. There's nothing extra you have to do. It's just discounted. It's just there and available for you. One new feature, a lot of people have been asking for this, is to have a capability to have a retake option that is now available on our A+ Network Plus and Security Plus. And I think this weekend we'll have it also available for the other certifications as well, so that if you want to pay an extra $49 and you have the option to fail the first time, but take it again for no additional cost other than that $49, those are also available as an option when you purchase your vouchers. Not only do you get a discounted voucher, you also get a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook for free. So this is another nice addition that you don't get anywhere else. I put together a set of tips and tricks that I've accumulated through the years taking these CompTIA exams, and I put them into a book. Things that can help you not only in your study process, I give you tips and tricks you can use during the exam itself to hopefully get you a few extra points. You can find all of this available at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to the question we asked earlier, which was, a system administrator is recovering a system from backups and has a total of 4 backup sets for the restoration. Which of the following backup types is most likely in use? Is it incremental, image, synthetic, cloud, or differential? Let's stop the poll and see what you thought the answer was. 62% of you say the answer is incremental. We also have double digits, 12% each for image and differential. Synthetic was 10% each, so I'm going to call that a 3-way tie for second place. And then down here at 4% is just cloud. Not many people chose that one. Incremental was the answer that most people chose, and that's because an incremental recovery requires not just the original full backup that you made, but you need every incremental backup that you created since that full backup. You can see here on the recovery day, we have the full backup, and then we also had to add in all of those incrementals just to make sure we had all of the right data. So incremental backup was the right answer. 62% of you got that one absolutely right. Not too difficult. You guys knew your stuff with your backups. That is the right answer. That's the one we were looking for. And now we know that we're able to get in, answer questions. We can click the things we need to click on the screen to be able to see everything. So this brings us to today's performance-based question. The performance-based question is a little bit different than a multiple choice. Multiple choice is the one we just had, where it was a question and there were multiple options to choose from. Even if you didn't know the answer was incremental, you could have guessed, and you had a 20% chance of getting it right. CompTIA does not want you to guess. They don't want you to get free points. I'm just assuming. They haven't told me that, but it seems that way. They want to really know if you have studied this material and if you know your stuff. So one of the things they've created is a new type of question. I wouldn't say it's a new type of question. It's just anything but multiple choice. They call it performance-based question, but it could be a fill in the blank. It could put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. It could be a matching question. It could be a drag and drop question. It could be a pull down menu question. It could be a free form question. The idea is they can ask you the question and those topics in any way they would like. It's very difficult to prepare for a question like that, or is it? Because all of the questions that they will ask are still based on the official exam objectives. And as I like to say, really doesn't matter how they ask the question. If you know the content, you'll be able to answer it with no problem. And a good example of that is the question we have for you today. I will tell you that this is, for the most part, a 220-1202 question. There's a little bit of 1102 in here for people that are studying the previous version. But this is definitely a 1202 performance-based question that asks, select the best Linux utility for the task. And we have 4 tasks that we will choose from. One of these is check the integrity of an ext4 file system. The other task is determine file space usage by directory. The next is install a packet capture utility. And the last task is browse a web server from the command line. And I want you to match from the 7 different utilities that I put here. It's a 1-to-1 match. So at the end of this, there will be 3 utilities left over. And as extra credit, maybe you can tell me what those utilities do as well. So the utilities are DNF, dig, nano, mount, curl, du, and FSCK. Those are the 7 utilities that we would like to answer. You can submit your answer at any time by going to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. And that's an easy one to keep in mind. Just go to the link there on your screen. It's right there at the bottom. It says https://professormesser.com/QA. That's where I'd like you to go to answer this question. For those of you listening in on the audio podcast, again, let me give you these tasks again. They are check the integrity of an ext4 file system, determine the file space usage by directory, install a packet capture utility, and browse a web server from the command line. For those tasks, you would use one of these utilities: DNF, dig, nano, mount, curl, du, and FSCK. If you didn't know anything about this content, this would be the oddest audio to listen to, I think. Dig, nano, mount, curl. I'm like a numbers station on shortwave or something. So that is, hopefully you're familiar with some of these. You'll notice that some of the utilities in this list are not part of the utilities that you find on the 1102 exam. So some of these are definitely 1202. That is by design. This is a 1202 study group. So I wanted to put in some of the 1202 content with this one as well. See how you do with that one. People are slowly getting their answers in. This is a bit of a difficult question because it's just a lot. Not really difficult in its complexity. It's difficult because there's a lot of these questions. That is something that is relatively common with performance-based questions, that they are all multiple steps of things that you have to do. So that is one of the things that I think is pretty important when you're looking at a performance-based question. We could have made 4 different multiple choice questions out of this, just so you're familiar with sort of the concept, the idea that's going on here. But by putting them all in one question and then making it so that it's sort of an uneven list, well, now it's a little bit harder. Now there's a lot more to deal with. But you will have 3 left over. And again, if you happen to know what those 3 do, you should tell me. You should make that happen. You should figure out those details. A lot of people putting in information in this one. So a lot of folks bringing more information into this. Some great questions in here, by the way. Folks are doing great with some of these. A lot of the answers that we are getting, obviously this question is an open-ended question to be able to work through it. So if you are someone who is trying to figure out the details of Linux and you have been working through the 1202 exam objectives, these should look very familiar to you. Hopefully they have been. Let's step through each one of these and see what we would put as the best utility for each of these 4 tasks. We will start with the one at the very top. We'll start with check the integrity of an ext4 file system. All you Windows people are out there saying, oh, you run check disk. That's what you do. Yeah, well, this isn't Windows. This is Linux. So what is the Linux flavor? What is the Linux alternative that does a very similar thing like check disk, checks the integrity of the file system? If you are in Linux, then you're probably running the file system check, FSCK. That's why I put file system in the question itself. But of course, that is something that you should be familiar with this utility. It is a utility that is important to know. It's a utility that you find being used quite often, especially if you power down a system without properly turning it off. Linux will very often perform an automatic file system check when it boots up. But occasionally, you will also see that there are file system checks that happen on a certain interval. Maybe every 100 times you restart, it will just perform a file system check automatically. So those of you that have not familiar with this, you're looking at this, the chat room's already telling me, what is that? Where did that come from? This is a 1202 exam objective. So if you've only been studying the 1102, the 1101 and 1102 are the previous versions of the A+ exam. Those are not in there. This is a new topic on the latest version of the A+ exam. Next on our list is determine the file space by directory. Determine the file space by directory. One way to do that in Linux, in fact, there's not really a great way to do this in Windows. I guess you could click through, but from the command line in Windows, I guess you could do this with a dir/s. Does it give you a total at the end? I don't think it does. So this may be a little more difficult. There are some great utilities like a tree utility in Windows you could use for this. But if you're in Linux, you would use du, disk usage is what that happens to be. du, do. It's not do. It's du. Or is it do? I guess the thing about Linux is we tend to call things different names. We even tend to spell things differently in Linux, but du is how I refer to this particular utility because there are other utilities you might want to use as well, like df, which is a little bit different, which you really can't pronounce. So DU is a very good way to do this. That is going to give you a very nice list of file usage, and it will show it on a per directory basis. So if you're running out of drive space and you're wondering, where did all this drive space go? What is taking up all this room? You can start doing a little bit of research on your Linux machine to find the directory that's holding all of this data, and then pull down and break it out from that perspective. Next on our list is install a packet capture utility. Install a packet capture utility. One way to do that in Linux, you could use yum. Well, that wasn't on our list. You could use apt or apt-get. Those would be good, right? Well, those weren't on our list either. You would instead use DNF. DNF is a newer version of these package managers. It's also a new topic on the 1202 exam, so another one we need to know about. So if you need to install Wireshark, you need to install Nmap, you need to install some utility so you can do additional work, then you'll want to use yum, you'll want to use apt, or you will want to use DNF. Those are three very common ways to do it. Or as the Linux people are very accustomed to saying, just compile it yourself. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to install it from a package. It's much faster. I know it was done right. Whenever I compile it myself in Linux, I always miss one parameter that I really, really needed later. So I let the experts deal with the compilation, and I simply install it from a package. Occasionally, you will find yourself doing that, though. Yes, this is a very useful utility. You will find yourself doing that quite often. And there's our Linux people with the compilation parameters in the chat that never work properly for me. Thank you for adding that in there and adding to my leveling of anxiety. Next on our list, browse a web server from the command line. I thought you browsed web servers from a browser. I thought you used some type of Firefox, Safari, something to do that. This is, of course, curl. CURL. This is a way to grab URLs across the network, bring them back, and view the raw HTML as it goes by on your screen. So if you wanted to see the actual code that was used to build the website, you can see that by using the curl command. It's very useful to integrate that with some scripting. You can look for certain things within the code, parse it out of there, and then do other things with that data. All of these utilities that we're going through, by the way, are documented in our training course. I step through every single one of them, and I give you an example. I show the demonstration of this in a way that you could also run it on your screen. So if you wanted to try the curl command, you wanted to try the DU command, and you didn't want to mess up anything in your system, have a look at that video. That will give you everything you need. Well, that means we had 3 left over, right? We had dig, man. That's groovy. We had nano. That one we did not use. And we did not use mount, all you equestrians. So what do these 3 things do? I told you I'd give you extra credit if you got these right. So let's see if you did get these right. When would you use dig, man? You would use dig, of course, when you wanted to query a DNS server. This is one of the utilities very similar to NSLOOKUP that allows you to access information on a web server or a DNS server. So you can look up IP addresses, fully qualified domain names, text records, MX mail records, all kinds of whatever's on that DNS server. We can query that DNS server using the dig utility. Fantastic utility. You will use it a lot because, of course, every problem you will ever run into is a DNS problem. Bet you didn't know that. Why are we learning all these other things? I don't know, because it's always a DNS problem. The other one on our list is nano. Nano. This is not an alien language. It is, in fact, a text file editor. Allows you to easily full screen on your text-based console, which is super nice, is this way to edit a text file. Of course, in Linux, almost every configuration file that's in Linux, everything that you need to change in Linux can be done from the command line, and Nano is a useful utility for you people that are simply not strong enough for Vim. I'm throwing the gauntlet down. We're gonna have a Linux fight between the Nano and the Vim people. Not VI. No. We're going with Vim in this one. So that's one of those very common arguments we all get to have amongst each other when it comes to Linux. I'm just pleased to be able to do it. Next on our list is Mount. Last on our list is Mount. Mount, although I referenced some type of writing on a horsey, that was not the case here. Mount connects a file system to the operating system. That's a very convoluted way to describe Mount, but that is technically what it is doing. We are taking a storage drive, a file system, a partition that has been formatted with a Linux type of file system, and we are connecting it to our Linux operating system. This is how Linux operating system is able to create our file system and all the folders that are inside of it because it uses this mount command. In fact, if you ever plug in a USB drive into your Linux machine, you won't be able to read that USB drive until it is mounted in the operating system, and then it's given a directory name, and you can reference the files that are on that storage device. Those are in, and for those of you that are studying for your 1102, obviously a lot of these commands do not apply, although dig, I think, was in 1102. I want to say nano was in 1102 as well, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember now. It was a long time ago. That was last week. I don't remember. That was last month when we did that study group. I've completely forgotten last month. So those are the utilities that we were looking for. FSCK is file system checker. It checks the integrity of any file system you would connect to Linux. The du command is a disk utility that allows us to see the amount of file space and other things by directory. It's a nice little utility. DNF can install different packages on your system, remove packages, update them, upgrade them. You can do that with DNF just as you can with apt or with yum. The curl command allows you to browse a web server from the command line. Dig is a DNS server query tool. Nano is a full screen text editor. And mount is a way to connect file systems and be able to see and use them in your Linux operating system. So that was your performance-based question of the month. A matching question for us today, but one we got to really step through some of the newer commands and become a little more familiar with what's expected of us on the newer 220-1202 exam. Hopefully you did pretty well. I skimmed through the questions that were there earlier, the answers that came in, and you folks did really well with this one. You know your Linux content. So you're right on track for passing that part of the exam. Let's shift gears back to a multiple choice question, shall we? This multiple choice question, we're out of the Linux world. We're back to Windows, aren't we? Because the question asks, a user has set NTFS permissions of a folder to full control, but users connecting to the folder over the network can't access the files. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be the administrator needs to approve the permissions? Would it be share permissions are incorrect? Would it be that other user file systems are not configured with NTFS? Is it that other users are on the wrong VLAN? Or is it that the files are protected with BitLocker? If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat. Instead, you want to go to the link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA to answer this question. When I mentioned the chat, somebody was asking about this earlier in the chat. I am referring to the YouTube chat. It is also the one that is embedded on the screen at professormesser.com/live. So if you're watching this video on YouTube, if you're watching this video on my website, there's a chat right next to it. That's the one I'm looking at. So for those of you that are wondering, it's this chat. You can't really see it because my big head's in the way. We'll get that out of the way. So it's this chat right here that I am watching as it goes by. Really, I am paying attention. No, really. Now there's so many of me on the screen. What happened? There's a lot going on there. Let's put this one back. There we go. Worked fine. So this is a good one to step through because this one really is talking about something relating to a topic we should all be familiar with, which is permissions. Permissions are such a challenge, really, with any operating system. There's just so many different parts of it, but if you spend some time really understanding how that operating system handles permissions, your world becomes so much easier when working in Windows, when working in Linux, when working in Mac OS or anything else, because a lot of the problems that you will run into, especially when working with applications and data files, most of these problems are permissions problems. So this is a good one to go through. And there is an interesting thing about the way permissions work in Windows. I don't want to give anything away. You guys are doing pretty well with this one. So let's see what you answered. A lot of people holding back on answering this one, I noticed. The question again asks, a user has set NTFS permissions of a folder to full control, but users connecting to the folder over the network can't access the files. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Is it that the administrator needs to approve the permissions? Is it that the share permissions are incorrect? Is it that other user file systems are not configured with NTFS? Is it that other users are on the wrong VLAN? Or is it that the files are protected with BitLocker? Which one is it? Let's find out what you chose. I'm going to close the poll. Only 59 of you voted on this one, and you can see why we're a little torn. We're not quite sure. 42%, the plurality of you, said the share permissions are incorrect. We have a two-way tie for second place, 24 and 25%. That is, other user file systems are not configured with NTFS, and the administrator needs to approve the permissions. That's half of what everybody voted on, was those two. 5%, take a big drop right there. 5% say that other users are on the wrong VLAN, and 3% said that the files are protected with BitLocker. So therein lies our challenge. If we go with what most people said, that would be 42% of you, share permissions are incorrect. Let's talk about permissions in Windows, shall we? Let me clear this up for you right away. I'll give you the overview of what this is. When you're working on a local Windows computer, there's a file system on that storage drive of that device, and very commonly on Windows, that file system is NTFS, the next to new technology file system. Almost said next on that one. That's what I get for working in a next generation firewall company. It's not next, it's new. New technology file system, which, by the way, is not new really that much anymore. I guess they do keep updating it from time to time. But when you are connecting across the network, you have another set of permissions that are layered right along with it, that are included, that are added to the NTFS permissions. We refer to these as share permissions. So NTFS permissions you make on the file that is on the storage drive. Share permissions are created when you create a network share. When you go on the sharing tab, you have a different set of permissions, you'll notice. And that sharing tab is for people connecting across the network. Anybody who's local on your machine will use the NTFS permissions. Anyone that connects across the network will use a combination of NTFS permissions and share permissions. And therein lies the challenge, right? Therein lies the issue. Who wins? Does the NTFS permissions win, or do the share permissions win? Doesn't work that way. It works based on the most restrictive setting. So anytime that someone puts into these permissions, no, you can't access it. It's read-only, or you can't write to this file. You can't read the file. You can't, anytime there's a negative or something that is denying access, it takes priority over any other permission you may have set. So another thing to keep in mind, that if you have NTFS permissions at the top of a set of folders, the rest of the folders underneath, the child folders and files, will inherit from that parent object, which means if you're managing a Windows machine, sometimes you have to go through a couple of steps just to figure out what are their permissions on this folder. There are a number of utilities that can help you with that, and some buttons on the screen that can give you kind of a summary of permissions all at once, but that's an important thing to keep in mind. So there's the two different permissions that you might set up. On the left side, you are looking at the security tab permissions. So these are the NTFS permissions. And on this side is the sharing permissions. You can see that it's different type of permissions as well. Full control, change, and read is all you get when you're connecting across the network, and you get to choose which one of these you have. Look at this particular one, though. You can see that in this particular case, I have a reports folder. And in this reports folder on my local machine with NTFS, I said everybody, everybody's part of the everyone group. And by default, everybody is part of the everyone group. Everybody has full access. Everything is allowed. Full control, modify, read and execute, list folder contents, read and write. I have just opened it up for the world, for better or worse, that everybody can access this. Now, what if you're connecting across the network, though? Let's look at the share permissions. We come over here, and full control is not checked, so it simply uses whatever the control was already set for NTFS. The change option is not set, so it uses whatever settings were configured with NTFS. But notice the read option is set to allow. That is a more restrictive setting than the full control that we have over here. In fact, there is a read and execute and a read option on this that is allowed, but since it is denied, or at least the only read is allowed and nothing else, that is a more restrictive option, and therefore people connecting across the network will have a different set of rights and permissions than people who are directly connected and sitting in front of the keyboard of that computer. This can get convoluted when there's a lot of different permissions and a lot of different groups and a lot of different users, and there is some of the permissions that have been inherited and some of the permissions have been explicitly added to a particular file. It can get challenging, but that's why you're in the job. That's why they come to you, because you know how to decipher all of this and figure out the details. So in this case, because we connected across the network and got a different set of rights, our problem is with the share permissions. So now we have to go back to whoever set up the share, who has permissions to change it, and give us a different set of permissions, or ask them, why can't I write to the file if I'm coming across the network? Maybe that's a security issue. Maybe if you're in front of the computer, it's fine, but across the network, we're going to make it a little more secure. Maybe that's what they were thinking. Now, why wasn't it one of these other options? The administrator needs to approve the permissions. That's not done in real time. That's not something that you have to do on a computer, and it's not something you wait on. You don't connect to a share and then, I guess we'll wait for the administrator to connect so they can approve these permissions I need. Not the way it happens. It's all configured beforehand. You don't have to wait on anyone. So that would not be the right answer. Other user file systems are not configured with NTFS. Well, we're connecting across the network, so it doesn't matter what the file systems are on our computer. We could be connecting across the network from a Mac OS machine. It doesn't have NTFS. It doesn't have a lot of different file systems. It may have Apple file system is what they're running, but because you're connecting across the network, doesn't matter. The network connection doesn't have a file system. You are connecting directly into that share, and that's why we have a different set of permissions for the share permissions. We also have smaller numbers here. 5% said other users are on the wrong VLAN. There's no inherent VLAN filtering built into the permissions inside of Windows. In fact, I would think most users are going to be on a different VLAN somewhere. We very often will segment our network into multiple VLANs, which is perfectly normal, and it's something that does not affect the permissions that you have inside of Windows. And lastly, the files are protected with BitLocker. Well, perhaps they are, but it has nothing to do with other people accessing those files across the network because they are on a local machine where someone is given rights for people to access those files across the network. BitLocker is not involved in this particular case, other than the person authenticating into this computer and unlocking the device and making sure that everything on that computer is able to read those files. So our answer here is the one that most of you answered, which is share permissions are incorrect. That is the correct answer. That incorrection is correct. 42% of you got that one absolutely right. That's the right answer. That's what we were looking for. Hopefully, you are now more familiar with permissions and how we use them inside of Windows. Maybe something to play around with on your Windows machine. Something very easy to work with and be able to use. As you can already tell, there is a lot of information in the A+ exam. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of topics that you need to know about. And those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of topics cover many, many different areas, including hardware and operating systems, working through the details of security and networking and command lines. There's even a little bit of troubleshooting at the end of both of these. So you do have to keep in mind that being able to parse through this massive amount of information can be a challenge. Of course, all of my videos are available on my website, so you could certainly go to our big list of videos on YouTube and watch all of those that we're working with, or you could have a look at our course notes. Our course notes are a summary of everything we have here. I shouldn't say or, you should watch the videos and then use the course notes to follow along with the videos, or use this as your summary after you've watched the videos to give you a reminder of what was covered in that particular video. You can see they are separated in order by the videos, and they match the same numbering scheme as the CompTIA official exam objectives. This covers all of the text from those videos, so you don't have to keep writing things down. All the important graphics are in here, so the different tables and information you might need to reference are also in here. This is a comprehensive summary of everything that we contain within our training course. This might be something that might be useful for you as well. If this is something that you think you might be able to use, have a look at it. We got a little video overview of it as well at professormesser.com/1202 notes. There's also not only the digital version you saw, we have physical versions of these books. I have the 1202 here and the 1102 right here. So it doesn't matter which version of the exam you're planning to take. Just make sure you get the one that is correct for the exam that you will be taking, because there are slight differences between these, enough of a difference to make a big, have an effect on your final score. So make sure you have study materials that match the version of the exam that you are planning to take. Learn more about those at my website, professormesser.com/1202 notes. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's keep going through this list. Next on our list is this. This is a fun one. This is one that actually is real. This happened to me. It's a question that asks, a user's laptop shows the message, quote, apps, ads.financetrack2.dll, threat detected, Trojan spyware. Access to this PC has been blocked for security reasons. Contact Windows support, 855-555-1212. I have obviously changed the number. Which of the following best describes the reason for this message? Is this Windows Defender virus blocking? Is it cross-site scripting? Is it false alert? Is it insider threat? Or is it zero-day attack? You think you know the answer? Go to that link right there, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will be able to step through this. A user's laptop shows the message, app, ads.financetrack2.dll, threat detected, Trojan spyware. Access to this PC has been blocked for security reasons. Contact Windows support, 855-555-1212. Which of the following best describes the reason for this message? Is it Windows Defender virus blocking, cross-site scripting, false alert, insider threat, zero-day attack? It's got to be one of these, right? Input your answer by following the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to answer this one. This is a pretty good one. I don't know that it feels like a trick. This one's pretty straightforward. No trickies here. The only time you have a trick question, I feel, is when we're really not sure of the answer. And it's so much easier to say, you're trying to fool me, than say, oh, I don't know the answer to this, but and where I usually am, everything's a trick to me. Everything, until I really have to read through it. Oh, that's the way it works. You weren't trying to trick me at all. I just didn't know the answer. That happens quite a bit. So see what you think, input your answer, professormesser.com/QA, or guess. Take a guess at it. See if you guessed the same as everyone else by going to that link and locking in your answer. Let's see how you did with this one. A user's laptop shows the message, ads.financetrack2.dll, threat detected, Trojan spyware. Access to this PC has been blocked for security reasons. Contact Windows support, 855-555-1212. Which of the following best describes the reason for this message? Is it Windows Defender virus blocking, cross-site scripting, false alert, insider threat, or zero-day attack? What did you answer? Let's find out. We'll close the poll and see. Here it is. We have 58% of you, just over the majority, say the answer is a false alert. 20% of you said this is Windows Defender virus blocking. We also have 14% that said cross-site scripting, 5% said insider threat, and 3% said zero-day attack. And I can tell you right now that 20% of you now have a system that is probably infected with malware. And that's because this is not a real message. This is a fake antivirus alert. In fact, this is the literal antivirus alert that I got on my screen. This is really my parents' computer, who called me and said, our computer's locked. Like it really isn't. I had him send me a screenshot. This is the screenshot that my mom sent to me. Thanks, Mom. And and I looked at it instantly. You look at this and go, well, that's not Defender. It says it is, but as people are already saying, why are they asking you to call them? Why would you need to call someone when you get a virus? Your antivirus just quarantines it and you keep moving. You don't have to call anyone for this. That's the real guess here. They want some of your money. And so they're trying to social engineer you into calling them by making this scary. That's really the point behind this. This is a social engineering attack, specifically around false alerts. Let's get a better look at this. Here it is. This is one. This is the exact message that I put into the question. Trojan spyware. It's been blocked. I did block out the number so that you don't bother these very nice people that are trying to scam you out of all of your money. So that is what we found there. It looks so good, though. It says Windows Defender Security Center. It's using the Windows logo. It says Windows. It says there's Windows things here, but this is something during the startup to block things up. I don't even remember how exactly I solved this one other than probably forcing it to close, going to Task Manager and forcing it to close, and then removing the executable from the computer. It was an easy cleaning job. We didn't have to do too much because it's fake. It's not real malware. It's just something to scare you into calling them so they can get your credit card number. That's what the point of that was. So whenever you see somebody, obviously a message saying there's been a threat identified, there's spyware, there's a virus, there's something bad, you would instantly think that may be your Windows Defender or your antivirus software kicking in to make sure that doesn't get any worse on your computer. The real key here, and this was already mentioned in the chat room, but they said to call them, and they locked the computer. They locked it so that you couldn't use it unless you really knew what you were doing. And they left a phone number. So normal antivirus does not lock your computer. It does not require you to call anyone. Like, they don't want you to call anyone to be able to find that and to be able to work through it. But this is the generic number that you always see in Hollywood movies. They always use the 555 MPA, and that is just a normal exchange with any random number at the end. Very commonly, you see 1212. But that is something used very commonly to denote that this is a fake number. Sort of like using example.com, similar thing, but with a phone number. Those of you, that's when we used to call people. We use these things. They can be used for voice communication. So if you are someone who has one of these devices you text with, amazingly, it is also possible to have voice communication across that as well. And that's how we used to do that, using these archaic groupings of numbers. So the other answers that were here, cross-site scripting would not show this on the screen. In fact, you probably wouldn't know the cross-site scripting was going on because it simply runs a script and happens in the background. Not what we would see here. We already described why it would not be Virus Defender in this particular message. Would not be an insider threat. That would be weird that somebody inside your company put a message that was fake on a machine for you to call someone else. Doesn't quite fit. It is certainly not the best description of this particular message. And a zero-day attack, well, since we know that this is fake, it would not be a zero-day attack. Fake messages don't need a vulnerability. Fake messages don't need an unknown way to get into your system, so not a zero-day attack in this case either. The best reason for this message is indeed a false alert, and that's what 58% of you chose for this question. Let's do another one. Next on our list is a quick question that asks, which of the following would be the best example of PHI? It's not PHI, it's PHI. Would that be using a private key to create a digital signature, storing credit card information, memorized numbers used during a login process, digitally transmitting medical records, or booting a system from a network server? Let's see how we do with this one. Which of the following would be the best example of PHI? Would it be using a private key to create a digital signature, storing credit card information, memorized numbers used during a login process, digitally transmitting medical records, or booting a system from a network server? It's got to be one of those, right? We'll have to figure that one out. If you think you know the answer, simply use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to answer the question. See if you know what this one happens to be. This might be good. Yeah, is there even a 555 exchange even active? I don't think there is. I think that was the whole reason behind 555, so that there's always a set of reserved IP addresses, for example, that you could use in your lab. This is a reserved telephone number. Think of it that way. Just something that we can put into a movie and not have to worry about people calling. Because you can imagine when they did start to put URLs in movies, it became a bit of a problem because every movie had something different. Tell them to go visit very unusual URL.com. Well, then they had to actually grab that domain because they used it in the movie. So that becomes a little bit problematic as you make more and more movies. There's more and more things they're putting there. You'll notice they don't use a lot of that anymore. There was just too much. Too many domains that you had to keep track of. They instead just focus on getting a very unusual domain to promote the movie, right? That's what they do with the domains now. It's intentional. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following would be the best example of PHI? Is it using a private key to create a digital signature, storing credit card information, memorized numbers used during the login process? Is it digitally transmitting medical records, or is it booting a system from a network server? I can't wait. Let's find out. We'll close the poll and see what the answers are. Big numbers. 75% of you say the answer is digitally transmitting medical records, and then all single digits from there. 9% said using a private key to create a digital signature. 7% said memorized numbers used during a login process. 5% said booting a system from a network server. And 4% said storing credit card information. Well, PHI didn't fool anybody. That is protected health information. So anything dealing with your healthcare, anything dealing with medicine, anything dealing with doctors, with nurses, with hospitals, that is part of PHI. And there are some very specific federal rules in the United States and other countries, and also have their own set of protective rules regarding healthcare data. In the United States, we work through the specifics of PHI through monitoring regulations associated with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, which we call HIPAA, even though it's not spelled HIPAA. It's spelled HIPAA, but we don't call it HIPAA because that would be weird. Instead, we call it HIPAA, which is a much better way to say it, but not a very easy way to remember how to write it. But this is what every medical facility deals with to maintain the privacy of your healthcare information. What is more private than that? That is a pretty important thing to keep private. So that it's good to have those regulations, but when you get into situations where you are trying to determine if something is something that will work with HIPAA, will be specific to PHI, well, we can look through these. The only one of these answers that had anything to do with healthcare was indeed the digitally transmitting medical records. That was the answer that we were indeed looking for. Also on this list, we had other things. Let's see if we can figure out what abbreviation I was thinking about when I created these questions. The first one on our list, we'll go in order. 9% of you said using a private key to create a digital signature. I guess you could say that that is part of a PKI, a public key infrastructure. That has nothing to do with PHI, however. 7% of you said memorized numbers used during a login process. That is most likely a PIN, a PIN, a personal identification number. Again, not related to PHI. 5% of you said booting a system from a network server. That would be Pixie, PXE, and that is not, again, anything to do with PHI. It has nothing to do with medicine. Not directly anyway. And then 4% of you said storing credit card information. That would probably be the PCI DSS, the payment card industry data security requirements. So that is where we get PHI, where it fits, what we're doing with all of these other answers that are here. Another good thing to think about. Now, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, which means that you have already earned your certification and you're looking to renew your certification by gathering these continuing education units, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. The way that you would earn that email from me is you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put Core 2 July. No, don't put July. Core 2 June 2025. There, I almost got the year wrong. That's how we're doing today. That's how this whole day has been going. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Click the Contact Us link. Put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put June 2025 Core 2 or something like that. Just get it close. I'll figure it out. And then in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, which are PHI and PKI, which actually is not on the screen, but I'm telling you, that's what you put there. PHI, PKI. Those are two different acronyms. Know the difference. So those are the two I would like you to add. And of course, you could put anything else you would like into this message as well. I do read through every single one of them, although I get hundreds of these every month. I'm not able to individually respond back. But when you put it in there, I see it. I read it. And I'm very appreciative of that, by the way. I really enjoy reading through those. So wherever you are in your certification studies, if you're trying to get through this, if this is your first certification, if it's your 5th certification, I love to hear the stories. Again, what you would do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, put in your name, your email address, in the subject line, put June 2025 Core 2. In the body of the message, put the super secret code words of the month, PHI, PKI. That's what we want. If you do all of that, it takes me about a week to send these back to you, but I will send them back to you. You'll receive an email from me that has been digitally signed, and you'll know that really, really, really did come from me in its current form. That's how you can earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU. I know we're sort of pushing the top of the hour here, but let's squeeze in another question. What do you think? Next on our list, we've talked about Linux today. We've talked about Windows today. Let's talk about Mac OS today. This question asks, a Mac OS technician uses the Control Up arrow keyboard shortcut to view all running applications on the desktop. Which of the following describes this feature? Is this Spotlight, File Vault, Dock, Finder, or Mission Control? A Mac OS technician uses the Control Up arrow keyboard shortcut to view all running applications on the desktop. Which of the following describes this feature? Is it Spotlight, File Vault, Dock, Finder, or Mission Control? If you know the answer, use that URL right there, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. See if you know, see how much you know about Mac. You Mac OS people have got it. You already answered like immediately, like 0.2 seconds, you put in your answer of what you thought it was. You already knew what this was. But this is one where it would be nice to be able to understand. Let's see if I'm able to do this on my computer. I don't have a lot of stuff running on my desktop. Do I? I do. I do have a lot of stuff running on my desk. No, I don't. I could probably show this. So if I want to do a Control Up arrow on my computer, there it is. Now you can see the background, and I only have 2 things. I have 3 things running, but these are 2 related in a single app for preview. I preview, and I do have a Pathfinder running, but it's over on the other screen. The other screen is ridiculous, but this screen, that's what we do with this. So there's the Mac question for you to be able to work through that part. See if you know what this one is. Lock in your answer. I'm going to give you another minute or 2 to answer this at professormesser.com/QA, or just take a guess. Those of you that know nothing about Mac, just take an educated guess. If you were sitting here at the exam, and of course on the exam, you should answer every single question. Never leave a question blank. It's another important thing to keep in mind. You don't get penalized for guessing. You get free points if you get it right, but they don't take points away from you. So there's no reason why you should leave anything blank. Just take a guess. There might be some free points there for you. We'll have to figure out the details of that. This might be a good one to see how we do. Let's see if we did as good on this one as we did the last one. We had a good showing there. The question asks, a macOS technician uses the Control Up arrow keyboard shortcut to view all running applications on the desktop. Which of the following describes this feature? Is it Spotlight, File Vault? I don't want to call it File Vault because I really want to, but I'm not going to. So I'll call it File Vault, Dock, Finder, or Mission Control. What did you answer? I have no idea. Let's hit the button and find out. We'll close the poll, and 64% is a pretty good number. But did they get it right? 64% said Mission Control. Did we get it right or did we miss on this one? 15% said Dock. 11% said Spotlight. 11% also said Finder. That's interesting. And then 0% said File Vault. So there you go. We have really 4 possible answers because nobody answered the one that is on this list. Well, when you're hitting the control button and using up arrow and everything sort of moves deeper into the world there so you can really see what you're working on, that indeed is Mission Control. This is Mission Control. It's a little better view of Mission Control there with a little bit more running on the desktop right there. Control Up arrow does that. And when you're in Mission Control, it may not be easy to see this on my machine, but right here at the top, you can create multiple workspaces, multiple desktops. So you could have one desktop that you're running just your normal email on, another desktop that you've got set up just for video editing, another desktop that you've got set up for gaming, another desktop. So you can have multiple screens that are sort of pushed out of the way until you really need them. And you can simply grab an application and drop it into any one of these desktops that you happen to see on the screen if that is something that you would like to take advantage of. There are similar features inside of Windows. There are similar features inside of Linux. It seems every operating system is turning into every other operating system these days. So those features are available either in the core OS or as part of something extra that you can add on. I will not say that everyone stole it from Apple. Of course not. That's not what happened. They came up with it all on their own. It was innovation in a vacuum. We had in no way, shape, or form was this borrowed from anybody else. Let's do another question real quick to end this up. This next one is definitely a 1202 question for those folks that, I didn't go through the answers though. We'll come back to this question. Let me quickly go through the answers. We said it was Mission Control. 64% of you got it absolutely right. Spot on. Well done. 15% said Dock. The dock is the thing at the bottom of the screen, and that is not what you would access using Control Up arrow in macOS. So it would not be the dock in this particular case. It would also not be Spotlight. Spotlight is a way to bring up a search on your screen. I'm going to quickly move this over here. So you can bring up a search in Spotlight. Here, we'll do one, for instance, on my computer. The easy way to do this, you could click it's not on this screen, but you can click a magnifying glass that is at the top of the screen, or you can do what I do, which is Command Space, and then it brings up a Spotlight search, which you see on the screen right here, and then you can look for Professor Messer, and it will search through my computer for all the files that have the word Professor Messer in them. There's quite a few website links, things I've been working on. It gives you a nice overview of searching through your system, very similar to the find feature that you have in Linux, very similar to the find feature you have or the search feature that you have in Windows. Just another way to bring this search capability out. So it would not be the Spotlight feature. Also would not be Finder. Finder is the file manager for macOS. So that would not be a Control Up arrow to hit that one either. And as we've already seen, it would not be File Vault, which describes the file encryption capabilities inside of macOS. Control Up arrow has nothing to do with file encryption. So in this case, the only answer, and the 164% of you got absolutely right, Mission Control. And I promised you one more question, so I'm going to give you one more question. A macOS technician was a good one, but now we need to shift gears to something different. We want to know more about this topic, which, as I mentioned before, is a 1202 topic. This is not an 1102 topic, for those of you that are studying for that previous version. A company is looking for security controls to protect against BEC. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be block all non-encrypted web pages, require visible visitor badges, update the spam filter, use a third party for storage drive destruction, or encrypt all laptop drives? Now, this is one of those where you have to know the acronym. If you know the acronym in this case, if you know what the letters stand for, then you probably can get this one right. You don't even necessarily need to know the additional information. So this is more of a gimme acronym, but you have to know the acronym first. Not really a gimme if you don't know the acronym, but if you know the acronym, it's absolutely a gimme. It's one of those scenarios. A company is looking for security controls to protect against BEC. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Block all non-encrypted web pages, require visible visitor badges, update the spam filter, use a third party for storage drive destruction, or encrypt all laptop drives. If you think you know the answer, use the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to answer the question. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. See if you know what this one might be. Is this going to be another one where we do really well? Or is this going to be another one where it's a new topic, it's not in the previous version, we've never seen it before, we haven't gotten that far in your course? In fact, I'm trying to think if I've even published this video yet, which is a good chance for me to tell you. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel before, now's your time. I have about 6 videos I'm hoping to post just today. So let's see if we know what this one happens to be. And some of you may have even had to deal with this before. So we'll have to see what the case is. If you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you go to professormesser.com/YouTube, or you can reverse it. You can go to youtube.com/professormesser. See how that works? You flip a coin, you're a winner either way. It all works just fine. Let's see how you answered this one. A company is looking for security controls to protect against BEC. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be to block all non-encrypted web pages, require visible visitor badges, update the spam filter, use a third party for storage drive destruction, or encrypt all laptop drives? Let's find out. We'll close the poll and see what you answer. Yep, we're all over the place. We're just not sure. Did not get a majority on this one. 41% of you say the answer is to update the spam filter. 37% of you said if you want to protect against a BEC, you should block all non-encrypted web pages. 12% said require visible visitor badges. Probably a good idea regardless. Then we're in single digits. 9% said encrypt all laptop drives, and only 1% said use a third party for storage drive destruction. And that is why some people in the chat room cheated and used Google to be able to do that. Shame, shame, shame. Everybody shame, shame, shame them. That is not that you don't have Google during the exam, by the way. So not one of those situations where Googling is going to help you very much, although it did probably give you the abbreviation, didn't it? That probably helped quite a bit when you did that one. This is a scenario where you are trying to protect against BEC. BEC is business email compromise. And if you know that, then you're in pretty good shape. Yes, with Google, if you Google it, you have to scroll down a bit past all the AI stuff that got it wrong until you get to the websites that get it right. That's my tip for you web searchers. Business email compromise. You're receiving information in an email, and that information is something that is untoward. It is an attack. It is a bad guy trying to get information from you. Maybe they're changing. You got an email that says, here's where you send the funds for the wire transfer. And it looks like it came from your bank. It even says it came from your bank. It might have even come from the person you're working with at the bank, or at least it seems to show that, except when you get into it, you see that it was not. Perhaps that person's email was compromised, and now they're sending you information that you're going to use to send the wire transfer, and then it goes right to the attacker's account. And of course, it could be one of these other very important things. Somebody in the chat room even mentioned that the one where the CEO is emailing you and they're asking you for some reason to get gift cards. That's my favorite one, by the way, because that's what a CEO deals with all day, is getting gift cards. And they want you to do it. You don't work for the CEO. You never talk to the CEO, but the CEO is going to ask you to do it. The other one is email to the payroll department. These are all very common things where somebody says, oh, you need to change our direct deposit to this account. And then another pay cycle goes through. You had no idea and you weren't paid. And the payroll department says, yeah, we sent it to your new account. I don't have a new account. Somebody else got the money. So another one of those situations. Usually you can claw those back so that the bad guy doesn't get their hands on your money. Business email compromise is what we were looking for. Only one of these answers had anything to do with email, and that was the one that 41% of you asked about. It was update the spam filter. There's a lot of things you need to do to help protect against BEC. That is certainly one of them, because a spam filter will catch the cases where somebody is trying to pretend to use a particular domain, or the spam filter is going to check the SPF values. It's going to check to see if this was really sent from a legitimate mail server. There's things that will help when you're trying to determine if this is a legitimate email or not. Spam filters are a great way to do it. Because this is a business email compromise, blocking non-encrypted web pages doesn't help you very much. There's not even a lot of non-encrypted web pages still out there, is there? There's a few, I guess, here and there, but it's something we don't often run across. No longer an enormous issue. Requiring visible visitor badges, and another important best practice, but has nothing to do with business email compromise. We also have 9% that said encrypt all laptop drives. Again, great idea. You should do that, but has nothing to do with BEC. And then using a third party for storage drive destruction takes all that off your plate, but has nothing to do with business email compromise, at least not directly. Would not be the best choice in this question. I guess technically we could build a story around this. This is what you should not do on your exam. Well, if I have a storage drive that's being destructed, what if the company that is doing the destruction doesn't really destroy it, but they give me a certification that it was destroyed? Then they sell it on eBay, and then somebody gets their hands on it, and now they have access to my email inbox because I left that on that particular drive, and now they have taken advantage of our email using business email compromise. So there was a whole backstory I created that had nothing to do with the question. You should be very careful about adding other pieces to the questions that are in front of you on these exams. This is another example of you not being able to be in that position of working through the details there. So hopefully that gives you a little more insight into some of these other topics that you might run into regarding the exam objectives. If you have not seen that topic before, then you may not have the latest set of exam objectives. Those exam objectives are available on the CompTIA website. There used to be one page you could go to. CompTIA changed their website last week, and now every certification page has their own link to the objectives. And I have not made individual links to those quite yet. It's on my list. It's a very long list. So sometime in 2026, I'm sure I will get to do that. In the meantime, you could simply go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives, and then the name of the exam you want, or just simply go to the CompTIA website, go to the certification page. It's one of the options at the top. We can look through that in the after show if you really, 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 really want me to do that. More than happy to do it. But certainly an important document, and it's free, by the way. That's a free document. We'll look through more of the exam objectives probably in the after show because it tends to come up quite a bit. We do one of these study groups for A+. Actually, we do 2 study groups for A+ every month. 2 days ago, we did our Core 1 study group. Today's our Core 2 study group. Next week is Network Plus. The week after that is Security Plus. And I've already scheduled the dates for next month. Our next A+ study groups are on July the 8th and July the 10th. Hopefully, we will have recovered from the U.S. July 4th celebrations that will undoubtedly occur on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This gives you Monday to recover. I'm thinking about you. And then on the 8th, we'll do a live stream. And you can stumble in, and we'll have all new questions for you on the new live stream for Core 1. And then on the 10th is the Core 2 study group. Join us again in July for that one. But we're not done here. This study group continues. Although we've made it through the first hour, I have questions that I will answer in the second hour that you have submitted to me. Again, you use that same link we were using before, professormesser.com/QA, and you can submit those questions to me online. I can sift through those and answer those coming up next in our after show. Also, don't forget about our course notes. Practice exams are coming soon, and when they are available, they will also be posted to professormesser.com/1202success. We have our discount vouchers. Don't forget about those voucher discounts. They are good. And the free exam hacks ebook that you can get with those vouchers. We don't sell that exam hacks ebook separately. You can only get it with a success bundle or by getting a discounted voucher. And of course, we're all over that internet thing. Go to professormesser.com/discord to join our Q&A, chat screens, study rooms, and other things that people are doing, where you can find our daily pop quiz questions on X, on Facebook, on LinkedIn even, at professormesser.com/X/LinkedIn/Facebook, whatever it happens to be. Don't forget about joining us on YouTube if you've not subscribed. As I mentioned, I've got 6 Core 2 videos all queued up, ready to go. I hope to get them out today or tomorrow, and you will be notified if you sign up and hit that bell on YouTube. And of course, we have our daily pop quiz questions we post on Instagram as well. Well, that brings us to the end of the first hour, a little bit over the first hour. Did a little overtime today. That's okay. But stick around for our after show. Thank you for joining us in this first hour. Thanks for answering questions online with us. And we have such a good time putting these together. It's so good to have you with us. Thanks for that. And stick around for the after show. We'll see you in just a few seconds. Thanks for joining us. See you next time on the A+ Study Group. I'm going to push a bunch of buttons over here. I'm going to push another button and we'll get rid of that graphic. There we go. We will cleanse the palette, be ready for the next course, which in this case is our study group. Our study group is kind of an off script. It is a list of questions that I go through on my side that you can submit at any time by going through and looking at the information we have on the screen. In fact, I should put it up on the screen. Let's close this out. See if I can hide this. There we go. So what I would like you to be able to do is go to that same URL that we've been using this whole time. You can submit questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. You can do that. I'll moderate the questions during that session, so your contribution probably will not appear immediately. I'll be looking through the questions on this side, and you can ask a question about anything. It could be about A+, it could be about IT, it could be about certifications, it could be about technology. It could really be about anything. It doesn't have to be about any of those things. So you have a lot of options that you could go through. Speaking of options, I'm going to sit on my side and bring up my list of questions that you have submitted and see what different things you would like to know about. Let's start with a couple of questions in this one, and we can kind of break this one out. You've seen me kind of parse through those now on the screen. That's the process I go through. Hello, Professor Messer. Any last-minute test tips while I write my 1102 on Saturday? So you got 2 days left for your studies. Also, how is the IT scene in Florida? As many of you know, our headquarters here is in the central part of Florida. So we are very tuned in. I've also covered Florida from a technology perspective for most of my IT career. So I've had a chance to probably visit most of the data centers in Orlando. I would argue probably all of them I have been in at one time or another in Orlando, Tampa, and really throughout the Southeast United States. There's first a couple of things. If you are a week before taking your exam, that is a very good time to sit down and go through the exam objectives. This is the objectives, of course. We've talked about these already. Why would you want to do that? Well, let's look at them. So you can see, I'm just going to page through a few of them as we go through here. I'm just going in order. There are 5 domains here, and you can see all these different bullets. CompTIA tells you every single topic that could possibly be asked of you on this exam, and they don't leave anything out. This is a fantastic tool because it helps you know very specifically if you know the content prior to walking into the exam room. And they list out everything. What a great document. Look at the details of this, and an acronym list that's at the end. So plenty to go through. Boy, there's a lot in this exam, isn't there? Let's go back to the very top of this. So for instance, domain 1, subdomain section 1.1, explain common operating system, OS types, and their purposes. Workstation systems such as Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and Chrome OS. What are the differences? What are the similarities? What would you expect to see? How about a mobile operating system like iPad OS, iOS, and Android? There's even changes happening with those as we speak. For those of you that saw the Apple announcements earlier this week, they're making dramatic changes to iPad OS and dramatic changes to iOS and Mac OS. So visual changes mostly. So there's things we have to know about these operating systems. What about file system types? NTFS, REFS, I guess technically it's REFS, FAT32, ext4, XFS, APFS, exFAT. That's the former FAT, I guess. That is not the former FAT. And then we need to know about end of life and update limitations and compatibility concerns between operating systems. There's your checklist just for section 1.1. If you don't know one of these things, circle it, highlight it, make it a different color. I do that in my PDF reader. I'll go to annotation. Let's say it's something I just don't know very well. Let's say I know NTFS, but I really need to read up a little more on it. We'll mark that yellow. But one that I've just never heard of before that I really need to go into might be REFS. So I'll just mark them on my list here. But everything else here I know pretty well. I can explain that one to someone else. So those are the two that I would deal with and work through. You might have mostly yellow and red on yours. I guess it would depend on how much you've been studying. But now we know exactly what topics we're comfortable with and exactly what topics we might want to spend a little bit more time going through. So spend an hour going through this list and answer honestly on if you really know it or not. Maybe you don't use yellow, red, green. Maybe use 1 through 10. And so that you can get nuanced description of where you should start. Okay, if it's a 1, I should attack those immediately. Now let's attack the 2s. Now let's go through the 3s. Everything that's a 10, we won't bother going through again. That type of thing. So you find your own way to do this. Those exam objectives are tremendous. So that's a great thing to consider. That's what I think everyone's last minute test tip should be, is to use those objectives. They are an incredible source of information. And the question about how's the IT scene in Florida. Florida's a big place. So North Florida is different than Central Florida, is different than South Florida. There are really 3 different states of mind in Florida. North Florida, very different, a lot more rural, a lot less populous than the rest of Florida, a lot more natural, but it also is not as much industry in North Florida as you would find in other parts of the state. There's still government and healthcare, and there are some companies, but you won't find any massive data centers, for example, in North Florida, unless it's something connected to a healthcare or something connected to government or university. But you'd still find them, though. Jacksonville is a good place. There are some pretty big data centers in Jacksonville. That is the one part of North Florida that does have a very vibrant and active IT scene. Not quite as big as Orlando, Central Florida, Orlando, Tampa, or South Florida, which specifically is more like Southeast Florida with Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach areas. Those are certainly a bit busier from an IT perspective. I think Central Florida is kind of the sweet spot in Florida for IT. Miami also huge, probably there's really on par. It's just that Miami is a little more chaos. It's a lot more populated. So you might have a little, it's a different environment. It's a different place to live. I mentioned there are 3 different states. Miami and South Florida is very different to live in than Central Florida. I've lived in both, so I can kind of speak to that one. The good part is IT is good all over the state, though. We are doing very well with IT in the state of Florida. So if you're in Jacksonville, North Florida, and then the other parts of Florida, really almost anywhere, you're good. I don't think I can speak much to anywhere else in the world, however. I have no idea what IT is like in Walla Walla, Washington. I don't know how IT is going in St. Paul, Minnesota. I just don't have any boots on the ground there. I don't have any feelers out for those particular areas. But a good way to check in any case is just to search, go to your favorite resume site and just search for that particular location. See what comes up. Do you get 3 job postings or do you get 300 job postings? You'll be able to figure it out from there, certainly. The good thing about IT is it's everywhere. It's hard to find some place that doesn't have a computer. Everybody's got a computer. Everybody's got a network. Everybody's connected to the internet. Everybody has IT or a need for IT anyway. So that at least gives you something to work through. And maybe that's given you a little more information that might help you in your studies. So thank you for submitting that. That was a pretty spot on question with the things that are there. Yeah. Can you imagine some of these other places? If you go to San Jose, that's ridiculous with IT. That's ridiculous with house prices, but it's also ridiculous with IT. Tons of IT, tons of technology. It's the sort of the technology epicenter of the United States. So of course it will be. But things like Dallas, Texas. Dallas is another one that has huge companies with big facilities and lots of IT. So you'll find these everywhere. So go to Plano. There's plenty to do in Plano. It just depends on where you have to live in the world, in the country, to find the best fit for you. More questions. Again, you could submit those questions at any time using the link on your screen, professormester.com/QA. This is one that I get. This is a frequently asked questions for this. Hold on, please. One moment, please. While I do this. Thank you kindly. So, how do we install? This question is from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, how to install a virtual Mac is on a Windows? It's a fine question. And I think I figured it out. How do you install a virtual version of Mac OS on Windows? And legally, you cannot. You can't. Now, you will find enterprising technologists on the internet who will find ways to install any operating system on anything. So I am not saying it cannot be done, because that would be untrue. But what I am saying is that the end user license agreement for Mac OS prohibits the installation on Mac OS on hardware that is not Apple hardware. So you legally cannot run a virtual version of Mac OS on any other hardware other than Apple. Now, technically, you could still, let's think about this. Would running Windows on Apple hardware, which you could do on the older Intel products, if you ran Windows natively, it's sort of native. I realize there's virtualization happening there. But if you ran it natively on the Intel-based Apple hardware, could you run Mac OS as a VM on that? I want to say no. But in any case, I probably have to go back and look at the end-user license agreement, and then I would have to pay myself a lot of money for legal fees. So that I'm not looking forward to. So we're probably not going to go that deep into it. But generally speaking, no. And if you can run virtual Mac OS on Apple hardware, why would you do that? Because you're already running Mac OS. So it doesn't help you with your training part of it. Now, the fortunate part on our exam, however, is that the Mac OS part of it doesn't ask for a lot of details about using the OS. It doesn't ask you how to perform functions. It's really looking for an overall understanding of these utilities and what they do. And if you know that, you're in pretty good shape. I think that would be my recommendation, is don't worry so much about trying to get hands-on time, trying to get stick time with a Mac OS installation if you don't have access to one. You can watch my videos. You can watch other people on the internet run Mac OS on their system. We demonstrate this in our training videos. You get everything you need to know from our videos. They're designed that way. But I realize some people want to be able to go deeper. You want to learn more about it. You're one of those people that wants to learn everything about everything you can. I'm one of those people too, so I get it. One of the things you might want to do is ditch your Windows machine. Just go get Mac OS, because then you can run virtual Windows on top of that. That's not a good answer. That is not the answer that's going to help you. But it is something that you might find in Mac OS that someone else has, or you may be able to pick up an older Apple system. The older Apple hardware and software basically has all the functions here that you need to know for the exam. So you could get a Mac OS machine that's 10 years old and it will have almost everything you need for your A+ exam. It might even have 100% now that I'm thinking through everything, because those features that we're talking about were features available in Mac OS going back 15, 20 years. So other things like mission control, probably not 20 years, but certainly 10 years ago it was there. I seem to remember using it, and I think I can think back 10 years anyway. So that is where I would go with that one. That might help you in your studies and your worries about what does Mac OS do and how do I learn all of those things. More questions. Let's keep going through this list. Next on this list, quick question. Let's kind of talk about this a bit. Again, from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, how long does it take to get results of our exams? Here's the good part about taking these exams. They are computer-based. You sit down either in front of your computer at home, or you sit down in front of a computer that is at one of the third-party training centers, the testing centers, and you take the exam right on that computer. At the end of the exam, you've answered all the questions. You've made sure you didn't leave any blank. You've gone through and read through the questions again just to make sure you didn't misread them the first time through. When you're completely satisfied, there's a button that says "End the exam, submit, I am finished, we're done." You click that button, and it does not give you the score. It says, "Oh, I'm glad you're done with your exam. Now we're going to ask you some questions about yourself." So they ask you a bunch of demographics questions. And so you have to step through the demographics questions and answer all of those. And then finally, once you have finished the demographics, you click, "Yes, I'm done with those." It will tell you if you passed or if you failed and what your score was. That's it. So that is a painful part of the exam. You've finished. You just want to know if you passed or not. Could you just tell me if I passed? Quit asking me what age range I am in. Quit asking me what part of the world I live in. Just tell me if I passed or not. So you have to kind of rush through all of the demographics questions. And then you can push that answer that says, did I pass or did I fail? And it gives you that answer on the screen. Technically speaking, you aren't quite done yet. That is, the results of your exam are indeed the results. It will tell you if you answered enough questions correctly and you passed, or it will tell you that you did not answer enough questions correctly and you did not pass. So you can absolutely do that. You absolutely have that function associated with it. However, what happens next is that is now processed. They evaluate your score, because there are some things that people will do where they have been unethical. They have taken the exam and perhaps used materials that were unapproved by CompTIA. And they can tell. They can read your mind. I don't know what they do. There's some type of statistical analysis they do of your exam results to see if it's something that may be suspicious. And if it is suspicious, they may take a little bit of extra time before they ratify your final score. This usually takes less than a day, though. So in 24 hours, you can check your account online, your CompTIA account at login.comptia.org. You can log in there and see what your score is. It will tell you you passed, then you're done. It's final, and you go with that. But I think for the vast majority of us, the 99.9999% of us, that message you get at the end of the exam that says if you passed or if you did not pass, that is the final verdict. That is exactly how that exam went. So you know immediately what the results were, which is kind of nice. You get to find out, do I have to go through this again, or did we pass it? Did we go? Did we make it? You'll know. So they won't string you along very long. You'll know before you leave the room. So that's an important part of this. Makes it easier to know. Then you can either be happy when you leave the room, or you can try to find some way to get out of the place and not have to look at another human. Except they've got all your stuff locked up at the front in the locker. So you're going to have to, do the walk of happiness or the walk of shame, I guess. Most of us, I think, do pretty well with these. And if we don't do well with it, we understand why. Also, I will tell you, if you don't do well with the exam, also look at that online set of exam results, because they tell you, yeah, you didn't pass, but they also tell you every subdomain that you got a question wrong in. And this goes back to your exam objectives. They might say, you got a question wrong that was in section 1.1, explain common operating system types and their purposes. And you might even be thinking about your exam like, oh yeah, there's a question about REFS, and I think I got that one wrong. Well, that would make sense because you marked it as not knowing it very well, and it came back and it bit you. And so you can go through that to determine, was there a one section or a group of sections that you did worse than others? And that there's some great intel there. Don't forget about that, because you're going to take the exam again. Just because you didn't pass the first time, take the exam again. You don't fail until you stop taking the exams. They'll let you keep taking the retakes. So keep taking them until you pass. And that helps you quite a bit understand where you might want to adjust your studies to kind of fill in some of those gaps. It's all in that document. Have a look at it online. That's going to help you very much. Demographic questions. People in the chat room were asking about that. What do you mean demographic questions? They ask you. These are questions about yourself. What age range are you in? Demographic questions are things like, how much money do you make a year? Where do you live? What zip code do you live in? How many people are living in your home? Have you now or have you ever been a member of whatever party? You know, they ask these questions of you. And so you have to answer the questions. They don't ask about the political party. But they do ask you about yourself. And it's just a quick survey to learn more about you before they give you the answer. So that's what that is. Next on our list, I don't know what they do with that data. I'm not privy to that. I'm not part of that world. So they do something with it. I don't know. Should be interesting. Let's keep going through this list. More. Let's see what's going on here. There's a few things to go through. This is a good question because I don't know the answer. And there's really no way to tell what the answer is. I don't know it because it's impossible to answer. Not impossible, but improbable to answer. This question from Alphonse asks, hi, Professor. My Windows 11 home laptops pops up 3 command prompt windows when I turn the laptop on. So you log in. I guess this is after the login process. You put in your password, you hit enter, and then bloop, 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 things start. You see them on the screen. They go bloop, they're gone. There's another one, it's gone. So you can see it's a control. Boop, there it goes. There it goes. There. The problem is that these could be completely legitimate. They could be a login script. Maybe you're on a domain and it's running a login script. Those commonly run on a command prompt. It could be a third-party application that has to start up some utility when it begins, and that utility starts up at the command prompt. Some companies do this. It's a little clunky. Or it could be bad. It could be that something malware-ish is on your system and is starting something evil. But it probably isn't. If nothing bad is happening on your system, that probably is not the case, but you never know. Just because nothing bad is happening doesn't mean it's not something malicious. So I always recommend doing a little research. Have a look and see if those things popping up on your screen show up in your event viewer. Everything is in the event viewer. So if it's running during startup, you will see it. The problem, of course, is event viewer is just a massive information. It is a huge haystack of data, and you're just trying to find that needle. And it's sometimes there are many filtering tools in it, but sometimes it's difficult to identify what that might be. The other thing you can try to do is to look in your startup. You go to your task manager. There's a startup tab in your task manager. You can disable everything during startup and restart your computer. Do those screens pop up with everything in your startup list turned off? If it does still pop up, then it's something outside the scope of applications that are starting. Of course, there are other ways to start applications in Windows other than that startup, I realize. So it could be part of a service that's starting. So finding a little more research, trying to get more into that one is going to be interesting. Windows does not make it super easy unless you're a developer and you're connecting to the system over a serial port or USB and you're running a debug session. There are ways to figure it out. But I think most of what you'll find is either in your startup or it's in the event viewer. You spend some time there, you'll probably run into what it happens to be. And maybe sometimes you can catch it. One of the things I do, I literally video the screen with my phone because maybe it has brought up some text that's going to help me. I also, in my studio, I have video systems that are storing the video. As many of you know, I store the video you're looking at now. It's being recorded down here. So if anything pops up on my screen, I see it as part of that video that's there. So I can now go back to that video and see what happened there. What was it starting? How'd that go through? So there are ways to go through that process. Maybe you will be able, using one of those many methods, to be able to do that. And of course, maybe it's now the time. This is a good time to run a scan of your system. If you do not have a dedicated anti-malware scanner, now's the time to download something like Malwarebytes, which is a very good malware scanner, and run that separately. Maybe just run it on demand. There is a free version, I believe, still of Malwarebytes. Run the free version. You know, they do have a version that you can pay for that does on-demand scanning and additional features. But if you just want to see, is anything on my system and can I remove it, that is a tremendous tool to be able to use. There's a number of really good malware scanners out there you can try. That's one of many. I've just had very good success with Malwarebytes, but I've also used other malware tools in the past as well. So find the one that works for you. Let's keep going through our list. Let's keep going. Another frequently asked question from my good friend Anonymous, who says, "Hello, Professor Messer. I passed my 1201. Thanks to your videos. Congratulations on your Core 1 1201 exam. So, Professor, when will the 1202 videos be uploaded?" Yo, thank you. You're welcome. I don't think it was quite as angry as I made it to be there. The 1202 videos are almost done. What do we have online? Like 40 of them already? We have quite a few. I've got another 6 in the queue today to be uploaded. They've already been uploaded. They just need to be processed and released, and I clicked the button to make them public. Right now, all of our 1202 course materials have been shot. There's no more in-studio work or live studio work I have to do. They are all in the can, as we say in the industry. I don't know what industry that is, but that's the way I say it. They're in the can. They're ready to be edited. They're ready for someone to edit them. And that someone is me. So I'm waiting on me at this point. I will edit them. And it really goes relatively quickly at this point. So you're going to start to see just lots of videos being uploaded and released in batches. So in a week or two, all of them will be done. And then you'll never have to ask the question again about, when are these videos going to be done, mister? When are you going to get some work done for a change? I'm slacking off. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going as fast as I possibly can. What's fun about this right now, is it fun? Is that this is where the content gets made. This is sort of the interesting part of what we do, is really making and releasing the content. It's an exciting time. We're just building new things and we're putting them out on the internet and people are using them. And that's always gratifying to see and always fun to do, but it's very long days. So right now we're in our 15-hour day cycle. So that's all I'm really doing is editing, posting, editing. If I wasn't doing this right now, I'd be editing video. Before I started this today, I was editing video and uploading video. After I'm done today, you got it, I'll be editing video. So it does get somewhat monotonous when you're doing that, but it goes really quick. And I just kind of get through them, get them posted, because I know you guys are looking for them. I want to get them out there as quickly as possible for you as well. Plus, the faster I get them done, the faster I can finish up the practice exams, which of course everybody are asking about as well, which is the next question, which is, when are you going to be done with the practice exams? And like the videos, there are no dates. We don't do dates here. We don't do release dates for things like a training course. That doesn't make sense. Why would you create an arbitrary date that you have to push everything to? It naturally means the end result is going to be less than. It's going to be not as good as you waiting and doing it the right way and releasing it when it's done rather than releasing it on some date that somebody came up with. I hate arbitrary dates. There are times when you need to set a date and that's when it happens, and we're going to make that happen. But the vast majority of projects in any company are not properly timed. They set a date and they push everybody to the date, which always means the result is going to be less quality. Yeah, it's faster, but it's not good. We have always stood on and and insisted on the best possible training materials you can create. The only way to create those is to take your time and do them right. And I think people have recognized that. I think that's something that we can hang our hat on and say, yes, we definitely did all of those things. So we don't farm any of this out. We don't put it through AI. AI is forbidden on this network. We are not generating anything automatically. I write every question. I write every slide in every video. I produce every video and all of the content. The only time you might see anything that is a generative AI are things like graphics that I need, maybe a background or something. But all of the technical content, the images associated with products, routers, switches, this is a cable, this is an interface. Those are all real things. They're not AI things. Have you ever seen AI pictures of a computer interface? It's hilarious. You should absolutely run through a generative AI and have it create a computer interface for you, a port on the back of a computer. It's remarkable. We should maybe create some of those. They're so ridiculous looking. So we don't do that. We don't do anything with AI here. We don't think it's quality. And it's certainly not accurate if you parse through them. And this type of content, it needs to be quality. It has to be accurate. So that's why we forbid those. They're not useful to us. Someday, maybe. Who knows? Maybe someday AI will be smart. Right now, AI is not smart. And we talk about that in our video. I guess we haven't released that video yet. There is an AI section at the end of the exam objectives. Let's have a look at that, shall we? Click, 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 click. Clickety click. Let's keep going down to section 4. That's right. It's 4 in this one. The very last section, section 4.10, explain basic concepts related to artificial intelligence, AI, application integration, policy, appropriate use, plagiarism, the limitations, AI bias, AI hallucinations, AI inaccuracy. I know they say accuracy here, but that's not accurate. It's actually inaccuracy. And then private versus public AI, which is actually an interesting conversation. That one is really good. But as many of you know, the AI accuracy, the best AIs are in the 70% of accuracy, maybe close to 80%. They're just not accurate. And why would you study for an industry certification dealing with highly technical topics from something that gets it wrong it's only right 7 out of 10 times. 3 out of 10 times, it's completely incorrect. That's a fail on this exam. So that's why we avoid it completely. It's not very good for this particular use. It's good for other things, just not this. Put a lot of data in, have it sift through the data, go find a cure for cancer. I'm all about AI. Creating very good training materials for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, it doesn't work so good. Not so great. So that's where we are right now with it. Ask me again in 6 months. Things will change completely, I'm sure. This industry's crazy as we associate with that. Okay, let's keep going through our list. There was a question here about timeframes. Here it is. Found it. There we go. This is from Kevin, who asks, I'm trying to land a help desk job in the next 6 months. How should I prepare for the A+ exam? Well, I think you should start by watching the very first video of our A+ course. That is a very good place to start because it gives you an overview of what A+ is. From there, you can determine what A+ is not. It also talks about timeframes. It talks about what you do with this certification. What is it good for? How is it used? All part of that very first introductory video on how to earn your A+ certification. The 6-month time frame you have here is a pretty good one because on average, it takes about 2 to 3 months for each exam to go through all the training you need, study up, and take the exam and pass it. That's on average. Some people do it much faster. Some people take longer, but 2 to 3 months is probably a pretty good estimate on the averages based on what we have seen on our site. And if you're looking at 6 months to get an A+ cert, that's a good choice. What I would recommend you do, since it says you're trying to land a help desk job, I'm assuming, Kevin, that you are trying to get your very first job in IT, get that foot in the door. There's a video associated with the YouTube. It's in the YouTube video description of this video. If you're not on YouTube now, hit that YouTube icon at the bottom of your video screen and go over to YouTube and look at our YouTube video description. There is a link there to a video on getting a job in IT with no experience, which is what a lot of people taking these certifications are doing. They're trying to get that first job in IT, but they've never had a job in IT. How do you get that job in IT with no experience? And there's a lot in that video. It's a 30-minute video, but trust me, it is chock full of information. But we talk about certifications and if they are valuable or if they are not valuable. It's one of the 4 elements you need when walking into one of these jobs. So, and I talk about what you need to learn to get the job. And one of the things you do is a lot of research before you ever start submitting resumes. You find out what jobs are open in your area that you qualify for. What are they looking for in those jobs? What type of technical knowledge are they looking for? Are they looking for formal education or some type of degree? Are they looking for any type of industry certifications? These are important things to know. And if you don't look around at the jobs in your area, how do you even know what certification to get? Let's take Kevin's example here. I'm trying to land a help desk job in the next 6 months. How should I prepare for the A+? Are the help desk jobs in your area asking for the A+? We don't know. We can assume they are. Many help desk jobs out there absolutely ask for A+. It's a very common exam. It's probably one of the most common, most popular certifications to have as an entry-level position in IT. That doesn't mean everybody is looking for it. Many people are, but I don't know if the ones in your area are. Here's a good example of why I mentioned that. If you are in the DC area, District of Columbia area of the United States, you're in Maryland, you're in Virginia, you're in DC, that area is very much a federal government job type area. And in the federal government, they prefer seeing you with something like Security Plus to get your first job in IT. And they don't really care about A+ as much. So you may find if you're in that geography, a lot of the jobs want you to have Security Plus, even for an entry-level help desk. So now you might want to change which direction you're going based on what the employers are asking for. I think there's a lot of value in general for getting the A+. You learn a lot about operating systems and software and hardware and networking and security. You get a very nice overview of these technologies. So it makes sense to go through that process because then you can build on that by taking Network Plus or taking Security Plus or taking a Microsoft certification or taking a Cisco certification or just keep going. You know, everything else builds on itself in this industry. And this will, of course, never be the last certification you get. I was laughing at a post I saw earlier today because somebody was mentioning, yeah, you just need these certs to get your first job. You'll never need another certification again. I had to laugh to myself because this never ends. Once you get your foot in the door, now you'll think, okay, I want to get out the help desk and do desktop administration. I'm going to need a Microsoft cert. Or I want to become a Linux administrator. I'm going to need a Red Hat cert. Or I'm going to work in security. I'm going to need a Palo Alto Networks firewall certification. This does not ever end. It literally, you will continue to learn and certify yourself throughout your entire IT career. Always. Always, always, always. It doesn't stop. I was just amused by somebody saying, yeah, you just get the A+, you get your first job, then you're done. You'll have experience. You never have to do a certification again. Thought, just wait. Just wait. You're going to see. That's not actually the case. I think in my career, working with number of different companies and working across different companies, even in a role where I represented products, where I was part of Network General, where I was a systems engineer at Palo Alto Networks, where I was representing the sniffer. I was representing the Palo Alto Networks firewall products. All of these technologies, even though I'm working for the manufacturer of these technologies, I still needed to be certified. Especially if I work for Palo Alto Networks, I had to go get Palo Alto Networks certifications. Wait, I work here. I'm a systems engineer. You hired me. You taught me everything I know. They're like, yes, and now you need the certification. So we can tell people we gave you the certification. So don't limit yourself. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying here is don't limit yourself to just the A+. You may find that you're going to want to learn about all kinds of topics, or you may find that everybody does want the A+ and you picked exactly the right cert. The only way for you to know this is if you look around at those job postings in your area. So make sure you go out and do that. It's going to be an important part of learning what's going on with IT in your geography anyway. You need to become more familiar with that. You're driving down the interstate and you see a big building. Wonder what they do. Oh, it's got an odd name at the top. Let's find out how big their IT department is. Let's find out who's in their IT department. And I also mentioned in that video, what groups have you visited? Have you gone to a Microsoft user group? Have you gone to a Cisco user group? Have you gone to a Palo Alto Networks user group? Have you gone to a generic IT or IT security group? They are out there and they're having meetings, and you need to find them and go to those meetings and go meet some of these people, because you will be interacting with these people throughout your career. That's one thing that's interesting. It's probably expected once you think about it, is that this community of technical people is relatively small, especially in a single geography. And you will see the same faces and the same names constantly throughout your career. Even if you move away, LinkedIn kind of keeps everybody tight, keeps you close, lets you know what people are doing. It's a very good way to meet people, though, especially if you're trying to get that first job in IT. What's better than walking in on an interview or being on a phone interview or a Zoom interview with someone and saying, oh, yes, I sent my resume in because I know this person's who I met at the Microsoft user group meeting, and he said this would be a great position for me. So having that name dropping, knowing someone who works there, is a valuable part of this process that I think we often just don't talk about enough. But I do in that video, along with other things. So have a look at that video on how to get your job in IT with no experience. That'd be a good one to go through. We're hitting the top of the hour. We're pretty close here, but let's see if we can squeeze in another question or two to get this working through. This is a good one. I don't know if you're going to like my answer, Alex. It's from Alex, who says, I have been trying to get help to install a virtual machine for a few years now with no progress. Can you please make a step-by-step tutorial on how to install a VM? Well, you notice I have not. I talk about you should make a VM. I say this all the time. Pull up, make a VM, load some Linux distribution on it, use that for your testing. It's a throwaway line, but I never tell you how to do that. I never go through the process. Well, how do you do that? How does that work? What would you do to make that happen? Now, fortunately, I'm surprised this may be something you just haven't looked into. There's a lot of people on the internet that have tutorial videos on how to do this. And a lot of the virtual machines these days, let me see if I can bring mine up just so I can give you a feel for the way these VM hypervisors work. This obviously is one that is a desktop type hypervisor. No, remind me later. It's always already asking me to update. That didn't take long, right? So I have my hypervisor. Here we go. I'm just going to put it right in front of Alex's message here. So here's a hypervisor I'm running. This is the Parallels hypervisor for Mac OS, but it's very similar in style and tone to other hypervisors. What you have to do when you start saying, I want to create a new virtual machine, these newer hypervisors have a very easy wizard, we used to call them that, a process you step through that says, oh, do you want to get Windows 11? This is great. Do you want to get Windows 11 from Microsoft? Or do you want to install Windows, Linux, or Mac OS from an image file? Or just click down here. You can I'm on Mac OS, so it's saying you could download Mac OS and do a VM of Mac OS. How about download Ubuntu with Rosetta, download Fedora, and it's got other options here. I've got Debian, Kali. So all I have to do is say, yeah, just click that one. Yeah, let's do Kali, and click continue. And it says, okay, I'll do that. The package is 4.78 gig. Unpacked is 15.65 gig. Click download. It downloads it for you, creates a virtual machine with all of the standard settings. You can, of course, modify these settings afterwards, change the size of the drive, change how much memory is allocated, change the video settings, do all of that, but it does it all for you. So once you click download, you're done. You just walk away. And then when it's finished, you'll have down here, do I have a Kali? I think I have a Kali down here somewhere. There's a Debian, there's a Fedora, I probably can't see. There we go. Got more down here. I don't have a Kali on this list. Oddly enough, there I do. Yeah, Kali Linux. Even it's in sleep mode right now. So it's over here as another machine. So you'll just start her up like normal. Your Linux will start up with a normal configuration. And I don't think I did close this one out properly, or I didn't install it all the way because all I have is a flashing cursor there. But I have other VMs that are on here that I use all the time. For example, I have a test server up here. I have a Windows server running on my Mac OS. So I'll click that. It starts Windows. This is what would happen once you start the VM on yours. Looks just like Windows, doesn't it? Because it is. It is Windows. It just happened to be running in a full screen. There it is. Here's my Windows config. And I can log in. This is the same virtual machine that I use for the course. So you'll notice some of the names in here are the same. Now I got to remember Rodney's password. I don't know if I do. See if I do. Oh, I think I did. I don't have my domain controller running, and Rodney is logging into the domain. So this is probably going to take a few minutes while it tries to talk to that domain server. It even said, nope, I can't connect the network drives. Where's your domain controller? It's turned off, brother. And now we're in Windows. Now you could run this as a window as well. So I can pop this out of full screen mode, pop, and then I can even resize this to be different. Let's just move it out of the way. We'll make it smaller on the screen. Run Windows right there. And then while that's running, let's bring up Linux. Here's Linux. This is the Professor Messer web server running locally on my machine that I use for testing before I deploy software into production. So now I've got Windows here. On a separate machine, you can't see it in this view. You can see it right here. This laptop here is an Intel-based MacBook, and my domain controller runs on this because Windows Server does not have a working version for the Apple Silicon, but they do for Intel. So I run my domain controller as a virtual machine on this, and I connect to that virtual machine from this computer here. Here's my Linux login. I'm gonna be a bad guy and log in as root, which you're not supposed to do. So you're what? Don't do what I do. Do what I say. Don't do what I do. Now we're in Linux. So there we go. You can see I've got the WordPress databases. I've got new versions of WordPress that I'm trying out, just all running as a VM. That's how easy it is to use virtual machines. It's just like that. It's just another computer. Instead of you having a physical device on your desk where you're typing into a separate keyboard, it's all just right in front of you on the same desktop. I'm running Mac OS. I'm running Windows. I'm running Linux all at the same time. All you need is enough drive space and enough memory, and you're up and running. It really is a beautiful thing. So that's my recommendation to you, is run your virtual machines. It's so much fun. And you can absolutely communicate between these VMs. They are full-blown versions of Windows. They are, for example, in this Windows device, let's bring up Chrome. So there's Chrome. I'm on Google. So I know there's a new version. Remind me later, which I told you before, but apparently not far enough. So if you wanted to connect to Professor Messer, it's not going to connect to ProfessorMesser.com through this because that connects to my test machine, which is actually here, which is currently not running, or it shouldn't be running yet. Probably isn't. But this is on the internet. You could go to CompTIA.org. There we go. So you're on the CompTIA website. I accept all cookies because I love cookies. So you can run here. Also in my Linux VM, let's ping Cloudflare 1.1.1.1. So I'm pinging out to the internet here. And of course, I can communicate between these. As I mentioned, I have a domain controller running over on another machine next to me across actually wirelessly connecting to my wired network. And then I'm connecting to it from this Windows machine to be able to do the domain controller stuff you see in the video about Active Directory on the 220.12.02 video series. There you go. So plenty to go through there. There's a lot of options for virtual machines and things you can do with them. I would recommend checking the YouTube because there's just so many videos out there. I opted not to create my own. Instead, why recreate what people have already done very well out there? So that's where that goes. Let's keep going through the list. I am at the top of the hour, so we can squeeze something in. And working through the details. Let's see what other options we have, what other questions you have sent in. I'm going to get through here and see what other things are there. there's quite a bit to go through with the questions you've submitted. Thank you, by the way, for sending these in. This is pretty good question. I don't know if I want to go with that one yet. Thank you for sending in the AI questions. Now that I've completely trashed our use of AI, everybody wants to know about it. Here's sort of one that works well for me, and I think this is a pretty good description of what we have here. This actually, I'm going to shift out of this one and go to a separate question. I'm not going to put the one that it's here right up on the screen, but you'll see this also as we go through. This talks about how many times we've created an A+ course. And for those, because as you can see, we have just finished our 1201 course, and a huge part of our 1202 course is already uploaded. That 1202 course on YouTube, of course, will be available. And if you haven't seen it, go to professormesser.com/YouTube or youtube.com/professormesser, and you will go to our YouTube channel. On that YouTube channel are playlists, training courses, the current CompTIA training courses. So 1201 and 1202 are right there at the front. Numbers 1 and numbers 2. You'll see them 1 and 2 on that list. These are also, this is playlist. It will be a course when I'm done with it. Notice it says on here, course, playlist, course, course, course. YouTube has a course feature that enables a number of extra features when you're going through the class. Things like identifying what videos you have watched and which videos you haven't watched, for example. Those are part of the course features. So this playlist will be converted to a full course once I have all of the videos up and running. Right now it's 23 videos, so I do have another 30 or 40 videos to put on that list. And of course, as I mentioned, a lot of them are already uploaded. So those are there. But there are other training courses here as well. Everything is on the YouTube page. We go to the courses tab. You'll even see them there as well. So all the courses. I even set up the study groups as courses too. Just to see if that's something that might help folks as they're going through this. The question was, how many of these have I done? So this is the 1201 training that we're publishing now. We started with the 600 series of the course. So the 601, 602, technically 603 and 604. Technically, you had to take 2 of the 4 to be A+ certified. that was something. We did a 700 series course, an 800 series course, a 900 series course, a 1,000 series course, an 1,100. And so this is the 1,200 series course. So this is our 7th iteration of training courses that we have put publicly free on the internet for everyone to watch. I got a notification a couple weeks ago that my YouTube channel hit its 18th year in operation. So that gives you an idea just how long we've been putting these videos together and sticking them on YouTube. And YouTube was not our first video distribution site either. Prior to that, we used Vimeo. Prior to that, we introduced our training courses on that behemoth of video sharing known as blip.io. It's not there anymore. Blip.io went away. We get 1 million views on blip.io, and then it went away, and we shifted over to Vimeo. And then this up-and-comer, Google purchased this company called YouTube and said, we're going to really build this. And I said, well, I'll be part of that. So we started putting our videos on this thing called YouTube, and this is where we are. So we've had quite a few courses that we put out. One of the things you will notice is that we create all new videos every time. We do this for a number of reasons. One of them is that technology changes over time. So we started with 480p video that we recorded to tape. There was no recording to digital at that point. We recorded the video to tape and then digitized the video off the tape to put it online. Much more arduous to get these up and running. But that's one of the reasons we do it new every time, because if you try to splice in older technologies to this newer course, it just wouldn't look good. It would save a lot of time, but then it wouldn't look or sound as good as the one now. Also, I tend to find that questions you send me, comments you make, questions you have about technology topics, I get to add additional content, add additional context into the courses because those are things you've brought up as questions that you'd like to know more about. So if that's what you're asking, I build it into the new course. So it's not always a one-to-one replacement. I'm always going through every slide and updating content here and there, changing some of the text, getting rid of information, adding new information, adding additional context, making it easier to understand, those types of things. So that's also in there. Plus, I find it takes longer to get rid of old and splice in the new than if I just shot it new to begin with. It's kind of that idea of refurbishing a house. As many of you that have been in this position before, you buy a house and you can do two things. You can buy a house, gut it, just take out everything from the inside and rebuild it fresh again. Or for less money, you can simply raise the house, not lift up, completely destroy the house to the foundation and completely rebuild it new for less money. And it takes a lot less time. So that's one of those situations where it's much less expensive, much easier, and ultimately a higher quality if I simply just reshoot everything every time when there's a new update. So every 3 years, making some new videos, doing those 15-hour days. Maybe I should have thought this through before doing it. No, I think we thought it through. I think this is really the best way to do it. I think it makes a better training course. I think it's a higher quality training course, and that's what we're going after. We have never, ever considered ourselves to be just good enough. We don't think certifications lend themselves to being just good enough. We think it should be the best possible training you can get. We think it should be as accurate and as exam ready as you can possibly get. Sometimes we hit that mark 100%. We try to every time hit that mark 100%. And I think we do a pretty good job of it every time we go through those pieces. So it really is one where we've done it over and over and over again. We're starting finally to kind of get good at it. So hopefully you see that in some of the things that we're doing. Only takes you 18 years. That's all. Just 18 years of constant work. It's one of those things where you do it enough, you start to really get into the nuances of it. And there are many nuances with this type of thing. And of course, the industry changes under our feet. YouTube is very different today than it was when we started. Technology is very different today than it was when we started. And that's a fun part about this too, is we get to evolve along with the technology. And it's great that we can do that, watch these things. And now we, of course, have our website has always been there. Now we have YouTube. We can do these live streams. We couldn't do that in the beginning. We have other integration that we have, like with Discord. Now we have a fantastic chat where people can start their own study rooms. And when they're done with the study room, it automatically dismantles itself. There's thousands of people on that Discord. When we started this, I would have never imagined having that level of integration and connection with the people that are learning these technologies. Obviously, our goal is to get you a job or get you a better job. That is ultimately the mission statement of what we do here. It's a very simple mission, but a very complex set of tasks that get you from not having a job to getting that very first job in IT. So we try to focus it on many different levels, from many different angles. It's not just about a training course. It's not just about a live stream. It's not just having a chat available. It's a combination of all of these things that work towards getting you the certification, getting you the opportunity to get your foot in the door and get that job. It's a little bit of work, but I think it's well worth it. It's incredibly gratifying, and it is a lot of fun. I like playing around with the technologies myself. And so that's what I enjoy. I guess I would have to, because why would you do this if you didn't enjoy it? It's one of those scenarios. If you're not going to like it, maybe you shouldn't think of doing that. One good thing about technology is there's tons of ways to go, lots of directions. You could go to the data center. You could go to the cloud. You can work with email. You could be focusing on databases. You could have an internet focus. Maybe it's security. Maybe you like networking. That's the great part of IT. You can decide where you build your own path. You decide. You're the one writing the story. The rest of the industry is just there to help support you, whatever you would like to do. And that's what we're here to do as well, support you whatever direction you want to go. Well, I think that's a very good place to end our conversation today. Thank you for joining us for the first hour, and thank you for your questions in the second hour. Don't forget about our next study group, which will be Wednesday of next week. That is our Network Plus study group. If you're ever wondering when the next live event is going to be, we always keep the calendar on our website and the events calendar in Discord always synchronized and up to date with the latest information. Simply go to professormesser.com/calendar or go to the events calendar that is on our Discord server. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group.